Okay guys, today we're going to start working on the front. We got our panels done for the back of the cabinet. The only thing we like back there is possibly a little pull-out handle or something that we want to put on that removable piece. And besides that, pretty much the construction of the back is done. Today what we want to do is put some extra cleats in to help support the front piece. Now right here you can see this panel that's going to support the control panel. The front of it is where the front of the cabinet will actually butt up against. So it'll ride on these cleats down here. There's one on the left and the right side, but these cleats never came up to the top of the cabinet. That's just the way they were to support the fold-out control panel that used to be on the bowling cabinet before we started doing this project. And for our uses, we need to extend these cleats on up to the top, all the way to this panel. And then the face of this panel and the cleat here on the left and the right, once we extend it up, will support the front of the cabinet, and we'll be able to screw that front of that cabinet into it, or put cleats on the back of it and line it up with these and screw into it. I haven't decided how I'm going to do it yet, because this panel I have here, let me see if I can get in front of the camera. If you remember correctly, this white panel here is what I cleaned up and we're going to use for the front of the cabinet. It's just such a good piece of wood, and it's that compressed stuff is the only thing that is a negative about it. It's really straight. That's good about the compressed stuff. It's real straight. It doesn't have any bow-in or warpage to it most of the time, unless it gets exposed to a lot of moisture or something. It will soak up a lot of moisture, and then it just becomes like sawdust. That stuff will fall apart real easy. It'll swell up. But if you don't let it get wet, this stuff is very straight. It's easy to cut, and it's very forgiving. You can make really good cuts, keep things nice and square a lot easier on this than you can plywood, if you ask me. But it's just such a nice piece. I think it will adhere the artwork that we're going to eventually get real nicely, because it's got a nice white painted surface to it. And we want to use it, but if you put screws straight through this, or even through the back into it to hold it on, sometimes screws will tear out of this pretty easy. So I've got to think about it. I'm going to go ahead and get the cleats installed now, but I want to think about what I'm going to do to overcome the possibility that the screws might strip out of there. One possibility is to run the screws, face screw it straight in from the front. So if this panel was lined up, it's eventually going to go here like this. But it's going to be raised about another 1.5 to 2 inches, so it lines up with the front right here like that. I can screw straight in through the face of this, into this, all the way across, and into the cleats straight across, or straight through the front into the cleats. And that'll give it a little more support. It won't strip out because the threads of the screws are going through this, but they're going into the pine strips on the back, the pine cleats, and so it's not going to really strip out of here. But if you go from the back side of the cleats into this so that you don't see the screw heads, then the threads are only inside this, and they're probably only going to go in there a 1/2 inch or so, because this is slightly less than 3/4 inch wood, and only 1/2 inch into this, it'd be a lot easier for it to strip out. Now the good thing is, being the front, the only pressure that's ever going to be against it is people leaning against it, so it's just going to be pushing against it that way, so that shouldn't really cause the screws to strip out. But the weight of this panel is pretty heavy. Over time it may try to pull loose from the screws, so we're going to think about how we're going to overcome that. But right now we're going to measure from here to here on each of these cleats so we can extend it on up. We're going to go take this piece of wood. It's just a scrap that came off of the strips or the cleats that I made to support the back panels, and it happened to be almost perfectly square, and it's got enough length that's good on it, and it's almost identical to these, that I can just cut 2 more and extend these on up, and we'll glue and screw those into place. Okay guys, we got our cleats pre-drilled. What we did was we went ahead and clamped them to the cabinet temporarily, and we had already marked this off about 1.25 inches down from each end just to put us a screw, and we pre-drilled us a hole through each one with a small drill bit that's a little smaller than the shaft of screw, and we just clamped them to the cabinet temporarily into the position they were going to be in, so it'd be lined up real good and straight. And I went ahead and used the same drill bit and drilled on into the cabinet just probably an eighth of an inch, maybe just a little more, just so it didn't split right there when it was going into the sides of the cabinet. And then we come back and took them back off, and we used our little paddle bit here, small paddle bit, and we just went back into the small drill bit holes and just walled it out just a little bit right up here so the head of the screw can recess a little bit. It just makes it look a little nicer, and recesses the screw in there and gives the screw just a slight bit more penetration into the next plywood that you're adhering the cleat to. But you can't go too deep when you do that, because if you do, you're going to end up with that screw piercing the other side where the black laminate is, and we don't want that. So I'm just going to fire up the vacuum real quick and clean our mess up here that we just made. Alright, and as you can see, does a good job making those little kind of neat little recesses there for the screws. Just makes it look kind of factory. You've probably seen small wooden furniture you get, like TV stands and stuff. When they put them together, you can see where they've done stuff like that and recessed little screws and stuff like that. Sometimes they'll recess them so deep that you can come back with these little tiny wood dowels, and they'll come in kits, and you could stick them back down in there and glue them in and cover that up. But you could do that, like if we do that to the front of the cabinet, it's actually possible to make holes like this and recess it down deep enough so the heads of the screws will be completely hidden, and then you can come back in, insert a small dowel, and just take a belt sander or something and just sand it down even with the surface of the front panel. And you know, then you could come back over that. If you glued that down in there, you could come back over that with stickers or vinyl or something. You'd never even know there was a screw in there. So that's a possibility, but right now we just want to get the cleats installed and all. So come back in just a few minutes and we'll show you the cleats installed. It's the same process you've been seeing. Like with this one here, we'll just end up putting it right here back in place, and since we pre-drilled into the cabinet itself, there's actually a small little hole there and one right up here where this lines up. The screw, we can just run it down into here and leave the tip of it poking out, and it'll line itself right back up. We'll just put a little wood glue on the back of this cleat, line it up, put the screws in, it'll be done. So we'll be back in a second and you'll see those finished. Okay guys, we've got our cleats all finished up. You can tell where the old ones leave off and the new ones begin. Let me get around my lamp here. Of course it's darker wood because, like I say, that wood's aged a whole lot more. But you can see the original ones, they just kind of put some pressure on there and kind of countersunk the screws, which it was soft enough pine that they could do that. And you can do that, but I just like the way it looks better whenever you make the recess for it there. You can see that, and they got a staple in there too, as opposed to that. I just think that looks a lot cleaner. And those cleats, I mean, they're probably a 1/16 of an inch deeper. I didn't cut them to size. That's just a piece I had cut that was left over. But the front part is all you're concerned with. You just want it flush with the cleat down below. Doesn't matter. I mean, shoot, that could stick off 2 inches if it wanted to, but it's almost exactly 3/4 of an inch, and the cleat underneath it, it was just scrap that they used when they made the cabinet probably, and it's not dead perfect, and neither is the cleat on the opposite side. But it's really, really close. That one's even closer. But you just need the front side flush. Just right here, that's an illusion there. It looks like it's not flush. That is an illusion. It's just got to do with the color of it. But we've got it glued up and we wiped off the excess glue. So we've got both of them done. Ready for the front panel to go on. And that'll be the next step that we do.